Alexandra Sidorova, resident fighter ace of the elite 6th Fighter Wing, banked hard left and expertly put a burst directly into the path of the Japanese Hayabusa, tearing through the fuselage and sending it down in a spiral, trailing black smoke. The enemy fighters were sturdy, but with inferior engines and firepower, the inexperienced pilots didn't stand much of a chance against the Russian veterans. As she returned, however, she was greeted with AAA fire from the surroundings of Baoding airfield. The Japanese 14th Armored had chased out panicked militia of the Nanjing Provisional Government, who had been tasked with holding the line, but broke quickly under superior fire. Cursing, she had to divert and land on a field near the completely overcrowded Shimen airport. General Popov ordered the heavy tanks of the 14th Armored to retake the vital airfield, and despite bombing runs from Japanese aircraft, the enemy was forced to retreat, leaving the burning wrecks of over 20 Chiri medium tanks on the fields, next to the remains of enemy airplanes that had foolishly tried to engage into the ZSU-85's field of fire. Given the relatively tense situation in Europe and the lack of local forces, we're redeploying the Second Army, which had time to rest over the remainder of winter, as well as the Third Army to Italy, in order to have some forces in the area that can quickly react to a potential aggression from the French Republic, now that their war with the international, at least on the continent, has been resolved. And it's just Norway and the Union of Britain that are remaining. That said, however, we are still trying to find a peaceful solution to the whole outcome. However, in China, we do have some problems on the ground where we currently have no air cover because we need to retake the airport, but that should be done relatively quickly. And in the meantime, we are clearing out some encircled Japanese forces south of Jinan. And I think all in all would be relatively quick in pushing back the enemy northwards. Now, we are not officially in a war, so the troops in Mongolia cannot enter. But we also have a fair amount of additional troops now in the Vladivostok area, including the Marines, for any potential action. These guys, however, can start training a little since they're here, and complete their training missions. I cannot remember what I'm saving up the political power for. I think I was going to go through and deal with some of the... Yeah, I was going to go through and do some of the economic projects here. We also have a very, very long line of infrastructure and railways to complete. So there's a fair amount to do here. Plus, we're back to partial mobilization, given that there's still no peace in the world. And that reduces the amount somewhat of factories that we have available compared to wartime. But first order of business is to retake the airfield, which we have done, and Zambezia has allowed the volunteers to fight. So we are transferring some troops into Africa, and we may actually need to bring some more forces south in case we are seeing further aggression from the Entente here against Africa. So let's see if we have. We actually are going to need an African theater, I believe, once again. Let's see if we have some troops available that we can send. I do not wish to necessarily strip all the troops out of Europe. So we do have, we might need some more specialized forces. I can send the 5th to Africa, but I was thinking that we might need some more specialized forces to deal with the low supply situation. But for now, I think we're deploying the 5th under Ungarn Sternberg. Let's see how far we can go. We can go. Probably bring some. Yeah, we'll bring half of them into Nigeria near Lagos, and we'll bring the other half over eastwards and get them into Kenya, just to have some troops ready, just in case there is any trouble. So We'll bring peacekeeping forces. We have significantly reduced our forces overall, but we're still on extensive conscription, which I think is probably the next thing I'm going to do to get that down towards at least limited conscription and potentially volunteers. But we're also dealing with the Ukraine situation, and we'll eventually have to do the Triumph of the Restored Empire, and then cement the role of Russia in this new world, let me put it that way. So for now, we're going to get the 5th Army into a new theater. That is going to be the African theater. And we will see how things go. We might also need to build some longer range aircraft actually to bring some air power into the region, but we don't currently have the research for that. Anyway, back to China. We'll have to see. These forces are arriving 6th of June, so it's still going to be a while. But for now, yeah, we are clearing out the positions here. We have retaken the airport, which means I can once again redeploy I can bring the aircraft back and get air superiority going again. So that is going to be, we'll start taking on the enemy fighters, which are already relatively starkly decimated. A large part of this is the fact that they are of, I would say, lower quality when it comes to the pilots. Right, tanks are orienting themselves, and we're getting ready for a push into what's the supply situation. Beijing is the next supply hub, so Tianjin is probably actually the place we should try to assault first. However, supply here is already strained, so we'll see what we can affect here. But we will bring, I think, both tank divisions to bear here. So let's leave them both here, and then we can move forward. We can move forward towards Beijing, and here we are clearing out the last remnants of enemy forces, and then the 13th can also make its way north onto the front lines. Right, we do have the mechanized infantry. And I think we can potentially try to cut off there's a fair amount of enemy forces in Baoding, so if we can cut them off. This is unfortunately mountainous terrain, but now that we have superiority in the air again, and we are dealing significant damage to enemy aircraft and disrupting their attempts at shooting anything down, really. I think we can also bring do we have airport capacity? Not really. We would need another airbase in the north from which we could operate, but we can probably do some long-range ground support operations in the south. There's not much left here really, so we can get probably 3 fighter wings should be enough. So we'll get 4 fighter wings north as well, just from here, just to cover what they can, and the close air support wings are going to assist in the south here where necessary. Right, rest of the troops is moving in, and we will see if we can manage to break that mountain position, and we will actually shorten the lines here somewhat and get these divisions to join the assault, and see if we can close the forest in the north. Now, tanks not the best to deal with the Fengtian troops in adverse terrain. That said, however, I think the firepower should be enough, and we will see how well the mechanized forces are going to operate in the forest. Terrain is not ideal, obviously. But I think the air power here is going to do a lot. Is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to clearing these troops out, and we can pin enemy forces in Baoding with the 14th Army divisions, just to ensure that they don't move out north, and we can manage to break through their positions. So, union with Ukraine is complete. Now let's have a quick look at what that looks like. We do obviously have still the resistance problems in the region. However, this should open up potentially some new options here. So what is this going? Okay, this is just going to rebuild Ukrainian. This is just going to rebuild Ukrainian. Ukrainian industry. So Ukrainian liberation does not appear to be on the cards. We'll see if that is something that will become available eventually. But yeah, we can use some. This also increases compliance, and is going to add additional factories as well as resources. So let's begin rebuilding operations in Ukraine, and then we will see how we were going from there. But obviously, unfortunately, this does not lead to Ukrainian or Belarusian independence. It seems that they will simply become part of Russia with the same liberties that other minorities have inside the Russian territory. Which means we can now do the triumph of the restored empire, which is going to remove the Unger modifiers. So Europe lies shattered, but it was all for a good cause. Contrary to all expectations, Russia emerges as a victor of the Great Patriotic War, a reborn major power in the bloodiest war in history. Where the future takes us is uncertain, but Victory Day is finally here and we have much to celebrate. So let's clear that out. And obviously there is going to be activity still from the Ukrainians, but if we can get these resistance targets all under 34%, under 30%, I think that's what we need. Yeah, less than 30%, and we do need to deploy some divisions there as well. So I'm going to get the remnants of the 6th Army that are currently not deployed elsewhere, and get them to be actually pretty much everything that's on the 6th Army. So we'll get them to deploy towards the areas here, which should help with suppression of, just a show of force, suppression of any kind of resistance there in the region. All right, these troops are still underway. We will see Portuguese incursions are rapid, obviously, into Zambezia. We will see if we can make a difference there. There is an airport, but we can't deploy any aircraft there just yet. So we'll see how that's going to look like eventually. But for now, the last invaders in the south are being taken care of, and we are making advances in the north, where we are going to meet the. We actually pushed the enemy out of Baoding, I believe. That is mildly unfortunate. Unfortunately, they are retreating faster than we can cut them off. But we will see how many enemy troops we can catch before the situation before they escape northwards. We have slight problems with supply, obviously, because the Jinan supply hub is definitely at its edge. And Tianjin is not ideally to assault from completely out of supply across bridges. So we are pushing them north, and unfortunately have not managed to encircle any of them. So we can stop the assault here and instead just retake a bit of territory. But we have now relatively large numbers of enemy forces retreating towards Beijing. So this might be our opportunity, and I believe what we should probably be doing is getting all armored divisions. Now that we are holding the airport, and I think hopefully what we'll do instead here is we're going to get the 14th Army to just to make sure that the Baoding and the airport don't fall. We'll redeploy the tanks, and we will see if we can make a concentrated push towards Beijing. But we are going to need the we're very out of supply, so we're going to need the tanks here, however, because they are. Can we not go through here? Yes, we can. There are 3 Japanese armored divisions here holding the line south of Beijing, so that's something we're going to need to deal with. They're still deploying additional support aircraft, but their fighter planes are now being degraded rather rapidly, and with everything we have, okay, there's nothing left in the south, so we can get everything oriented north. And we don't have any additional capacity on when it comes to airbase space, but we have as much air power as we could consolidate in the field. So we'll see if we can make a successful push towards Beijing. But first, we need to get the armored forces there. And that includes the 13th, which is also going to be needed here. So let's bring everything north. And then we will launch the assault and see if we can manage to take Beijing. Where's the railway going? That should be connected. So I don't think we can take Tianjin that easily, but we may be able to take Beijing if the supplies last. That is the big question. I think we're going to launch what's the heart attack on these divisions, because we are going to be completely running out of. 37 piercing might not be sufficient. Heart attack isn't terrible, but against the Japanese armored divisions, that might not be easy. Yeah, I'm just concerned that we are going to run very much out of supply. So we'll minimize the consumption. We'll wait for the tanks to arrive, and then we will launch the concentrated attack once the tanks are in place. Obviously, if the Japanese decide that they want to attack us, that is very much welcome as well. We're concentrating all forces that we have available, except for the 13th, which is still a little bit behind. All right, now we've got everything here. So let's launch the counterattack and see if we can. Unfortunately, this is even a river crossing, so that's not ideal either. But we will see if we can. Use our air power to crash through, and if we can get the heavy tanks and the mechanized divisions, they cannot be pierced. Neither of them can be pierced by enemy fire. We're getting counterattacks from massive Japanese forces out of Tianjin, and significant reinforcements in the north. But we will see if. We will give it a try and see if we can force the bridges here. Otherwise, we will have to potentially divert. And the problem, again, is going to be supply, because Beijing is the only supply hub. It's either Tianjin or Beijing. And so if we can't make the push across the river towards Beijing, then we may have to make another attempt against Tianjin in the east as a counterattack, instead of trying to force there. All right. Our division in Zambezia has arrived. So let's create an army group. Do we have anybody available? No, actually, we currently don't have anybody available. That means we'll make do without a field marshal. And we don't need the army group. We have Shatilov himself in command. But apparently Portugal has already taken. Okay, this is confusing because we have arrived in Lusaka, but it seems Portugal has already taken the enemy capital. Okay, no, we have retaken it. So the arrival of our troops in the enemy capital has driven whatever Portuguese forces were there out. So let's immediately begin by driving. We'll see if we can. Push the Portuguese all the way out. What happened here, actually? Yeah, not entirely certain if something surrendered here to Portugal, but we will see if we can manage to push the Portuguese out all the way to the coast. I'll have to keep an eye on supply. We should be getting some supply here, so hopefully that works out. But yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on it. Anyway, one thing I wanted to do actually is to research the Armored Engineer Company, because that'll allow me to use the armored support vehicles for these 14th Army Special Forces, because they are very, very good at dealing with fortifications and urban environments, to my slight surprise. So that's actually that would actually be a benefit. So let's get that research thrown in on the quick. And is there anything we can do with Ukraine? Not yet. We do have an MIO on the, what are we using that for? That would be used for, I don't know actually, what is that designer? Okay, wait, this is Osavia, but we also have a destroyer and cruiser. Okay. So what can we get here? This is heavy piercing, not particularly necessary. Surface detection would be good. Yeah, we'll take surface detection. So I will do that. We'll renew all the ship models once we've got the research done, and we've got the MIO that we're using for ground attack. Reliability and agility. I'll take it, and again we'll update the templates. To get that in. I'll do that off screen. Regardless, the main assault is happening in the north, where we are fighting heavy battles between the experienced Russian troops and the Japanese and Fengtian defenders, trying their best to hold the bridges, although the rest of the forces appears not to have joined. But we've got the 13th now as well, which is capable of reinforcing here. So we will see if we can eventually push them out. It's the third mechanized, which seems to be 57 armor, reasonably well armored. However, the piercing on our side is not having any trouble getting through that. So it is becoming a drawn out fight here with consistent counterattacks. But we will see if we can manage to push the Japanese defenders back, especially their armored divisions, and break through towards Beijing. Otherwise, we'll redeploy for a second assault against Tianjin and see if we can push the enemy out from there. It's critical to get one of these two supply hubs for further operations before we do anything else. And then we can attempt to break out north, encircle the enemy troops here. We'll break out across the plains north towards the Mongolian border, encircle the whole front line, collapse it, and that should be the end of that. What was I looking? Oh yeah, we've got the anti-partisan done, so we can work on a slightly better decryption in the meantime, and we've got two things. We've got an ace pilot. I really hope that I get an ace pilot that is not for a fighter, for a fighter wing, because I have enough of those. But the additional training for anti-partisan operations should also help us with getting the resistance significantly reduced. Yeah, its resistance is draining, so I think we will be getting that. Actually, with the reduction of resistance spread, we might even eventually go out of the local police force into civilian administration, and then peace hopefully reigns in that area. All right, a quick look. I'm gonna have to actually assign some shortcuts here. Quick look at Africa. All right, we have met resistance from Portuguese troops, and we do have to cross the river in order to push them back, push them back towards the coast. I don't think Zambezia has any troops. They have no army, so we are on our own here pretty much. against 2 Portuguese divisions. Well, what are we going to do strategically? There's relatively, we can secure the capital effectively. That's pretty much all we can do, I think. But if we can manage to take supply positions here and push the Portuguese out towards the sea, that might be advantageous. And but yeah, Portuguese troops are already marching in again from the other side. So I think countering them as much as we can is probably the better option than trying to. We'll move to the capital and we'll see trying to get across the river here against defensive troops. We'll try to hold the capital. We can't deploy any aircraft. Airfields are not in any shape to do that. So we'll do what we can, but the neo-colonial ambitions of Portugal here are most definitely not welcome. And I hope that other members of the Reichspakt will join in the endeavors to deal with that. As the war is ending, a more long-term solution needs to be found for the liberated territories. A number of proposals have been made for the civilian rule in Ukraine, ranging from Ukraine existing as an autonomous state within Russia to its partitioning to simply annexing all of Ukraine as gubernias, like any other part of Russia. While some fossils of politics still refuse to acknowledge Ukrainian nationhood, it is impossible to ignore. The Ukrainians have been separated from us for 2 decades, and during this time so-called Little Russia has grown to see itself as increasingly separate. The direct Russification of the late imperial era saw little progress. In fact, it galvanized the opposition. To ensure the stability and future of our union, we can do as Emperor Alexander I wisely did, pacify the frontier by tolerating some amount of self-rule and focus on building long-term institutional bonds between Russia and Ukraine. So we have 3 options. We can create a unified autonomous Ukraine, which will somewhat pacify that. We can create 2 autonomies, Ukraine and Novorossiya, which is going to cost us stability and is going to increase the resistance quite a bit. Or we can annex Novorossiya and create a limited Ukrainian autonomy, which is going to significantly increase the resistance as well, and cause quite some trouble. I would argue that while there is some history of Ukrainian atrocities and collaboration with the Germans, I think for now a unified Ukrainian autonomy might not be a terrible idea. And then we will see how well that is going to be received. We can also create civilian rule in Crimea, and there is currently not a direct threat from European involvement in potentially stoking any further uprisings in Ukraine. Against us. In fact, the biggest problem we had were the British, but hopefully they have gotten the diplomatic message. So creating a unified Ukrainian autonomy for now might not be a terrible idea. It is still going to be within the confines of the Reichspakt, and that should reduce the troubles quite a bit. Alternatively, Novorossiya obviously has a closer connection to Russia than to the more independent-minded west of Ukraine. But I think from looking at it, we would get a fair amount of resistance out of things here. So, and it's caused quite some instability inside with that decision to annex it. So we create a unified Ukrainian autonomy, and we will see if we can manage to create a peaceful coexistence between Ukraine and Russia. So that's done, and that will eventually allow us to create a civilian rule on Crimea as well, and get the territories hopefully under some more peaceful coexistence within the overall Russian Empire. All right. Africa, I am not entirely certain how much we can get done with a single division here. We will have to see if we can. Ideally, the only way to manage anything would be to try and trap and destroy enemy divisions. So what we can potentially do, given that the enemy troops are still a fair ways away, I think it might be worth an attempt to see if we can cross the river here and cut off Portuguese divisions in the north, destroy them, and then return and move westwards again. Meanwhile, the assault against the positions south of Beijing is still ongoing, and we are pushing. We're in hard tank battles with the 3rd Armored, but they are defending the bridges valiantly. But they are hopefully eventually going to get overwhelmed, despite consistent counterattacks from all sides and lack of supplies. After the wars of 1914 to 1920, many soldiers were left with nothing. Even if they still had a home to return to, many lives were permanently scarred, as these young men knew nothing but war. Without any prospects of a normal civilian life and profession, many of them turned to revolutionary or ultranationalist movements. Wasn't the first ZSRS rally in 1922 born out of this resentment? As Antonov, the folk hero of the Tambov Whites, rose to the podium and accused the ruling parties of ignoring the plight of the veterans, the men who had given their all, yet received nothing in return. There is a simple reason why this was so often the case: money. Some men are permanently unable to work, others lack education, or need long-term medical aid against ills like morphine addiction developed during the war from painkillers. Naturally, veterans' organizations are the first ones to lobby for this spending, and the nationalists see it as an easy way to score political points. Let's have a look at this. I'm leaning towards the last one, but we can hand out basic benefits, which is going to cost us a bit of political power, but is going to give us a bit of popularity. We can arrange state employment for all veterans, which is going to get us back towards early mobilization, which is something we wanted anyway. So that might actually be... that's not necessarily. I think I'm going to stick with the partial mobilization until we have sorted out the situation with the Entente. But it's the conscription that I wanted to change, not the mobilization. This would cost us 5% war support, but give us some popularity. Or we can create a comprehensive pension system. And I think that is probably the best ideas of all of them. So let's do that. That is going to cost us massive amounts of political power. So we're not going to be doing any actions anytime soon. But it should, and it has further cemented the cadets as the conservative liberal foundation of Russian politics. All right, I do have to keep an eye on the situation here and see if I can manage to trap and encircle these Portuguese divisions here without losing the capital. That is going to require some balancing, and we continue our fighting here in China. Actually, in fact, what I might do, what's the air situation? What I might do is I might trade out 2 of these wings, bring them south. Can I? Oh no, I can't, because these are separate. Yeah, okay, I can't do that because these are separate. These are separate deployments. No, I was thinking of bringing the close air support wings north, but I don't think I can even do that. Oh no, I can. Okay, interesting. I can at least deploy them to this airbase, but not to that one. So no, we'll bring one in then. The other one has to remain because we don't have enough capacity there. But we'll bring one air wing over here, and that'll get them a little bit closer to things. Can I pull back? Yeah, I can't deploy to this airbase for some reason, but to the other one I can. So okay. That might make things a little bit easier when it comes to trying to push the enemy out of here. The biggest hindrance is that tank division here. So we will see if we can get these guys pushed away, and then it's just the infantry, which should be having a lot more trouble dealing with our tank divisions. And if we can push them before they can reinforce, we have some fresh troops that we can get to reinforce. Okay, that brings it down to 2 infantry divisions. Make that 1 infantry division, and if we can push them out with concentrated high explode, they're reinforcing. I was hoping that we could have brought them out. All right, Gabon. Okay, it seems that the Entente is playing political games. Gabon has joined the Entente. Now, this is, of course, their freedom or to do so, but that means we are potentially seeing a further fracturing of former states joining rejoining their former colonial masters, which is of course very unfortunate to see. But yeah, the enemy is coming close to the capital, given that we have no indigenous troops that can actually defend the country. So we'll do what we can here. Now, unfortunately, the enemy has reinforced, which means that the attack is going to once again have to deal with significant numbers of forces here. And the 135th Armored has joined, which is of course going to be a significant amount of problems for our troops to break through. Well, we'll stay onto it. We have managed to make the movement south, and we will see if we can use that to get around the enemy, and then attempt to entrap them in the area. That's the plan, and the battle here is fierce. But yeah, I think this is going to eventually falter. So we may have to move the forces back, get them rearmed and resupplied, and then move back in for another attempt at a later stage. All right, the advanced cruiser hull is complete. So we are in 1944, so we can technically move even further to the modern cruiser hull, and I think that is something we'll do. We also need to get the all or nothing armor scheme done. But let's get modern cruisers underway. I think that is generally a good idea. So whole research going through. We've got some... we've got the Sviatogor. I forgot about that thing. Enormous multi-turret design is causing severe alignment and aiming issues, delaying weapon integration. Engineering team recommends simplifying the turret layout to improve reliability, but doing so will reduce the planned firepower. So we could keep the original design, which does nothing. We could simplify it, which would reduce the production cost, but also reduce the breakthrough, or redesign it, which increases the production cost, but increases also speed and breakthrough. We're at 99%. I think we can redesign the turret mechanism at the last moment to get a slightly mightier Sviatogor underway. So this has been a very, very long running project. We're still at 1 naval. I think I was looking at 2 for the proximity fuse. So we need another breakthrough point. All right. How is the situation in China? I think we will eventually be, especially that we're we're getting counterattacked on multiple sides here. We will eventually be pushed back here, or rather fail to break through, unless we can. We still have 2 fresh divisions we could bring in, but I think I might reduce that and start bringing in some fresh divisions here, so we get some of the more worn out divisions to stop the attack, and let's get the rest into the rest in here and see if they can make some advances. But no, it's not happening. Okay, stop the assaults and see if we can manage to recover. Some. We can manage to recover a bit of organization, and in the meantime, we get the 219th Mountain moving up into the foothills north of. The Portuguese have gotten there just before us, but we have pushed them back with ease. And now this unfortunately means that this division is going to escape. But what we can do is hopefully still manage to encircle the other position in the north and take the airport, if we can do so before the enemy reaches the capital. I'm not particularly happy, but then again, we have liberated them, and that means they have their freedom of decision. So let's see how that goes. I am going to, given that we are absolutely out of supply, I am going to pull the forces back at this point towards Jinan, where we have more supply. Can I not? I would like them to be redeployed. Nope, cannot fall back. Okay, then can we just move the troops? Not allowed to retreat here. Okay, that's odd to say the least. I would like to move my troops somewhat south, to be honest. Okay, now it's working. So let's see if we can disengage and move slightly south towards more favorable supply lines, get them resupplied, and then move back north into another attack again. All right, we have managed. I was hoping to catch a Portuguese division here, but it seems that they have managed to escape. So we'll retake the airbase and then return to the capital and see if we can find other opportunities potentially to see if we can encircle and destroy enemy forces anywhere in the region. All right, that's with friendly forces now falling back towards better supply positions. I think we can get everybody resupplied. How's the supply situation here? Still not grand, but we'll fall back a little bit further. Let's get everyone into supplied areas and get rearmed and resupplied as much as possible, and then we'll head north for another attempt. We're actually coming under heavy pressure near Baoding as well, and despite the fact that we are not getting an awful lot of the enemy's not getting an awful lot of bombing done, and we are shooting down vast numbers of enemy aircraft at this stage. So some of the Ki-43s, they're actually not bad, but in the end, the friendly air wings are. Why were we still flying the old I-185s? We're starting to get the I-130s trickling in as well. Then that should give another boost. All right, troops here are going to recover. Yeah, unfortunately, we have not managed to catch. This was a suspected Portuguese position, but it seems that it was just one Portuguese division that was doing this. So let's move to the front lines and see if we can find opportunities to entrap the Portuguese attackers here anywhere. But I think with one division, unless we get some more support here, that is going to be relatively difficult. We'll try to create a position here and see if we can do anything. Right. So we've got the advanced heavy hull. We'll deal with Ukraine in a minute. And we can get the modern heavy hull underway as well. So let's get that done. That also will need eventually... carriers, we are very, very far behind. But I do want to... I don't want everything. I've got 2 on hulls already. So I'm going to go through the... going to go and continue here with the research on the other side. Okay, capital ships, there we go. That's done. So, government of Ukraine. Let's see what options we have. Now that normalcy is returning to Ukraine, so do civilian politics. We have been recruiting the pre-existing civilian administration to run everyday issues, but it is only intended as a temporary measure. Elections have been promised to be held in Ukraine, though the vast majority of pre-existing parties have been either abolished or in exile for separatism. Despite the resistance in parts of Ukraine, political life is slowly waking up. 2 major parties have been formed to compete in the coming elections, the UFDP and the UNB. The Ukrainian Federative Democratic Party has been formed by Ukrainian liberals and social democrats who have deemed it better to accept the status quo and seek to maintain Ukrainian freedoms within the Russian federal system. The UFDP's program includes safeguarding the cultural, economic and political rights of the Ukrainians, seeking to build a healthy federal relationship with Russia and reinforcing democratic principles nationwide. They would likely be in the legal opposition with the Kremlin and oppose any further centralization. To the right, the Ukrainian National Bloc has been formed to combine Russophile conservatives and the national conservatives into a single party. It is strongly backed by the VSZV and Protofis. The program features constructive autonomy within Russia, maintaining conservative values, supporting veterans, and a focus on sensible economic policies to rebuild the damages of the war as smoothly as possible instead of chasing vague ideological goals. So we could simply appoint a government which is going to increase stability and compliance, or we will hold elections. Elections. We have a few ace situations as well in the fighting over Japan. Elections is actually something that is still supposed to be happening across. This is going to anger the right wing, but I think all in all, a democratic Ukraine is better than a Russia-controlled Ukraine, which is only going to lead to political upheaval down the road when Western Ukraine finds itself more independence-minded. So no, we will be holding elections. That is going to cost us additional political power, but they need to eventually hold their determine their own, and maybe there can still be a point where Ukraine will be fully autonomous and released into at least parts of Ukraine that wish to be independent and not part of Russia, and become their own nation. We shall see how that ends up going. Meanwhile, the enemy is inching closer to the capital, but moves to encircle them are probably going to be difficult to say the least. So let's see where we can best deploy. For now, we'll deploy to the capital and see if we can hold position there. And I am still hoping that they would eventually train their own troops. We might be sending them some material. So I'll be sending rifles. Let's send them 300 units of artillery, and we'll send what do we got? We've got so many rifles. We'll send them 10,000 rifles, and we will see if that'll actually allow them to begin training up their own divisions. Right. Meanwhile, in China, these divisions are getting not all supply that I wish for, but we are getting there supply-wise, and then we might try another attempt. Ideally, we should have 100. This is also something I didn't understand. We should have 105 combat width, but we only ever got 70. This is urban, so tanks, urban and fortified, so tanks not going to work well here. This is more fortified, but we will, I think so. I think we'll try against the Beijing position again. And consistent and heavy enemy attacks in the north here after we have cleared out the situation in the south. And it looks like that the Nanjing divisions are not particularly willing to join the efforts in the north. So that's another problem that we might have to deal with at some point if they are unwilling to fight. Okay, I'll get everything to regain their organization, and then we'll move up to the front lines again. We have lost 3 ace pilots in the fighting over Japan. That is definitely unfortunate. So let's replace losses where necessary. We still have a fair few experienced pilots in reserve, so we can always replace these losses. But yeah, heavy fighting in the air continues. And I don't think I can bring these any closer. We're already overloading the airbase here, so and this one we cannot use, so not much we can do here. All right, quick look at Africa, where we are. We'll just defend in Lusaka for now and see if we can find any opportunities. We'll let the enemy come. We'll see if we can find any opportunities to cut off and destroy a few of their divisions. All right, these troops are mostly recovered. We've still got a little bit of organization to do on the 51st. So the problem is I can't really build up the offensive line successfully because of the supply situation. So in fact, I might actually do 2 front lines here. We'll get the tanks onto their own front line here, and to push towards Beijing, and we'll get the 2 mechanized divisions on a supporting front line here with the same situation. In the Caucasian highlands, much of the population resides in what are effectively fortified villages, referring to broadly as auls. One particular owl in Ingushetia, Jairak, has earned a reputation as a stronghold of separatist forces. Consultation with locals has confirmed that it has served as a staging ground for repeated raids into the surrounding countryside. Fortunately, the generous benefits granted to the wild battalions have motivated many of these locals to enlist. In spite of the commanding high ground and defensive towers, a spearhead force of wild battalion troops succeeded in infiltrating forward and surrounding it under the cover of night. A subsequent dawn barrage by Russian mountain guns and mortars prompted Jairak's defenders to sally out, only to be ambushed and routed by the hidden wild battalion fighters. With the insurgents panicking, the battalioniers stormed the Aul in support of Russian regulars advancing up the valley from the town of Chimi. By noon, Jairak's defenses had been wiped out and the Aul captured, with many prisoners and their supplies taken as booty. The victory has been a cause for much celebration among loyalist forces. Likewise, the officers who had pushed for greater independence for the wild battalions are cheering their vindications. Do we still have resistance? Not really. It's really just remnants of resistance that we're dealing with here. Of course, the USNS is still running organized resistance because we haven't gotten compliance and resistance down as much yet. Compliance, I think we're almost there. Yeah, most of the compliance is at or over 60. It's really just the resistance decay that we're dealing with here. So any moves we can make to reduce resistance is going to be good. All right, Zambezia might be falling to Portuguese aggression. So let's see how much plant preparation we can actually. But I think they do need to be at the front lines in order for the plant preparation to begin, unfortunately. So not. We're not anywhere. We're not getting anywhere with planning unless the divisions are the front line, at which point they are going to struggle again with lack of supply. After the ban of the ZSRS and a number of other Svobodnik organizations, the Russian far right was essentially beheaded. But like a hydra, a new head will always grow, and now it has taken the form of the Young Guard. The Guard claims to be a non-partisan political movement that mobilizes patriots to defend Great Russia. Initially, it was led by Savinkov's former acquaintance, Yuri Shikmatov, but he is currently imprisoned for his actions in 1936, and the leadership has passed to former Colonel Sergei Ivanov. The movement is clearly modeled after the Iron Guard in Romania and espouses ultra-reactionary beliefs, though clearly avoiding any statements that would connect them to Savinkov too closely. As the Guardsmen are organizing new marches, many are most reminded of the Black Hundreds and their successor organizations. The Guard has tried to avoid violence and other clear illegalities, presumably out of fear that the movement will be banned immediately. We can ignore them, which will be causing us trouble down the road. I think any attempt to restore the Savinkovist model of ultra far right is going to be. Now, we are trying to create a democratic Russia, which means that these voices need to be heard as well. But I fear that if we don't deal with them immediately, then they will only gain in strength and cause more trouble. How significant are they? Let's have a quick look. We are Social Democrat. I honestly can't even see the. There's a syndicalists, totalists, radical socialists. I can't even see the national populists. So I think we can. I think our democracy can resist them unless they begin actually causing illegal actions. Once they commit crimes, they will be dealt with. But until then, our democracy is strong enough to tolerate the voice of these people rather than having them go underground and do other things. So for now, we will cause them to be ignored, and that might probably come back to bite us later on, but we will see. The UNS activity is still ongoing. We still have not the political power to begin to continue rebuilding or any other economic measures. And can we? Yeah, we will see if the not any aircraft. We will see if we still have an option to to make any actions against Portuguese involvement here in Zambezia. But more interestingly, right now, is I am in the actions on the Chinese front, where we are coming under consistent assault. So what we might try is to hold the line first and preserve what fighting power we have available to us in the defense against these massive Japanese incursions, to see if we have an opportunity here for a counterattack, because there is a relatively significant amount of forces coming in. So despite the fact that supply is rapidly depleting, we are having to deal with defensive action first after significant enemy forces are in the area, and even just holding Baoding is becoming an issue for the 14th, which is trying its best to dig in and entrench itself. We can get Govorov the infantry expert now, or we could give him the ambusher, but I think I'm more interested in infantry expert. So, because these are, after all, specialized troops for different purposes. So for now, we'll defend here, and we will try as best we can to still deal with the enemy air force, grind them down, and then we will see if we have an opportunity for launching a counterattack after defeating this massive assault here. So, the Russian Empire has triumphed. And now we have two options. We can escape the circle, which would argue that Russia has for centuries been known as the forerunner of autocracy. This is finally beginning to change. The Russian nation will be known not as a backwater or failed regime, but as the power that defeated German imperialism and became the protector of free Europe. That will be the legacy of modern Russia. May it shine forevermore, which is what I'm leaning towards. But let's have a quick look at the other option of the First Party of Russia. Past few years have shown that Russian democracy is strong, but even democracies need a modicum of stability. The cadets have shown that it is capable of making Russia into perhaps Europe's strongest power, of accomplishing feats that Russia never has before. It is only right that future generations know this fact and its political influence entrenched at every level. Now, I think we need to escape that circle of major powers and their diktat and see what we get. So with that, we will get a ray of hope and a torch for the world. So Russia as the blueprint for future generations and their efforts. All right, troops have arrived in Lusaka, and there are Portuguese troops in the south here. Unfortunately, I don't think we are in a position to do anything about them. But what we can do is we can juggle for territory and see if we can make our way. Who knows? Maybe we can. I don't know if it's just one division. It could be just one division. So we could try. Although, why would they go here? Now there might be a second one. We'll retake the territory next to the river, and then we will try to see if we can cut off these Portuguese troops here. And maybe push into Portuguese-held territory once we have ascertained how many troops actually are in the area. Because Portugal itself obviously has a significant number of divisions. So I'm not thinking that we're just dealing with one here. But we'll fight what fight we can fight. And we will see if we can launch a counterattack once the initial assault has been defeated. Of course, we're not getting anywhere in terms of plan preparation. But and I think that was the last agency upgrade that we needed. But maybe what we can do is simply launch a counter assault. So it may be unplanned, but I think we might have the best opportunity here to launch a counterattack. Well, yeah, we would have to get. Okay, we'll stop the assault first, because we're again getting counterattack from all possible sides, and we'll wait for an opportunity to launch an all-out assault from all sides. I think part of the problem is that we are getting counterattack from all sides as well, so we might need to do a concentrated assault further into the mountains. Unfortunately, that'll bring us further out of range of any supply here, but it might somewhat alleviate the supply situation. This is hilly and mountainous territory. It's not ideal for territory for counterattack. So a bit of a stalemate here south of Beijing, unfortunately, by the looks of it. But we do have elections in Ukraine. The mood of the elections was apathetic, with very low voter turnout. Still, electoral campaigns were reasonably orderly. There was both the election of the gubernial Dumas and the Ukrainian Soym, which served as the highest body of the autonomy. In return, the Soym elects the Commissar of the autonomy and his government, which act as the executive branch in Ukrainian local matters. De jure, the Ukrainian Soym has the right to legislate within the boundaries of Russian federal law and generally run the civilian affairs of the autonomy. However, there are doubts about how much the Kremlin will respect this autonomy. The elections were tough. The federative Democrats and small social democratic groups were largely victorious in western Ukraine and many cities, in addition to peasant lists. The strongest region for the National Bloc was the east and the south. But I would argue that we can get the federative Democrats to win in a landslide, which would cause Ukrainian passive resistance. Or we could get the National Bloc to form the government, which seems to be the better outcome overall. So I think for now we'll go with the National Bloc, and we will see if the results will be accepted. All right, so much political juggling happening inside Ukraine, and we are at a bit of a stalemate in at a bit of a stalemate in the Chinese positions, and we have no supply in the north here for any kind of further troops. We could do not move off. That's not what I'm trying to do. We could send 2 volunteer divisions still to the northern state, and maybe bring 2 mountain divisions in to support, because this territory is going to be hard for the tanks to. I don't want to fight in this territory. I want to break through towards Beijing. That's the task here. Alternatively, we could try to bring in 2 marine divisions and see if they could assist with the river crossing. So that might be another option to bring in some reinforcing troops. But for now, we are dealing with the Ukrainian situation, trying to we're bringing down the organized resistance. We're trying to bring some democratic reforms into the territory and see if we can find a peaceful way of coexistence. And Zambezia the Zambezia situation is definitely not ideal. So here it remains to be seen if the 219th Mountain can make much of a difference against the potentially massive Portuguese overhead. And we're bringing additional mountain divisions into the region just in case there is any further need for them. And we will be reinforcing positions near Lagos as well. So far, the whole situation between the Entente, Russia, and the International is not yet resolved, but we may have, once we have escaped the circle of violence, we may have an option to see if we can. I'm not sure if it's here, but I've seen it somewhere. If we can, no, I know it was up north here. We'll see if we can launch the Eureka Conference and try to settle the ongoing wars, and then it just leaves Japan in the Chinese gridlock, where eventually, if the fighting, if we cannot manage to push them back, and we cannot manage to convince Japan to get out of the war, we might have to take on Japan itself, but that remains to be seen.